My name is Beverly Wilson, and I'm 32 years old. If you ask my parents who I am, they'd tell you I'm the sensible one. If you ask my older sister, she'd smirk and say I'm dramatic. Funny how the people who invade your life always accuse you of making a scene when you finally tell them to stop. I bought my apartment 5 years ago. 2 bedrooms, a skyline I could never quite afford, but somehow did. A door that clicks in a way that still makes me feel grown. I worked double shifts, stacked side gigs, drank instant coffee until my hands shook, and when the keys slid across the closing table, I told myself, this is the place where no one gets to take up space without being invited. My sister Raina is 35. She's always been the sun in our family's tiny solar system. Brighter, louder, a gravitational pull that bends logic on command. As kids, she called sharing anytime she wanted something that was mine. As adults, she called it being sisters. Our parents called it, don't be selfish, Beverly. 2 weeks after I moved in, during lasagna at my parents' place, Raina asked for an emergency key. She worked late sometimes. What if there was a gas leak? What if she needed to use my bathroom? What if? My mother leaned forward, pleased with this performance. Of course, girls should help each other. My father nodded, the gavel coming down. Family first. I handed over the key. At first, it was small things. A sweater draped over my chair, though I didn't remember wearing one. A bottle of perfume tilted just off its square. Yogurt missing from the fridge. When I asked, Raina laughed. I popped by. You weren't here. Needed to print something. Calm down. My mother's voice on the phone. Beverly, that's what sisters do. The popping by became parties. I came home early one Saturday to the chalky echo of laughter from my living room. 3 women I'd never met sat on my couch with bare feet and red wine, paused smile when I walked in. Raina's on her way, one of them said, as if that explained why their hair clips were on my coffee table. I pulled Raina into my kitchen when she breezed in. You can't... Her eyes flashed. Relax. My place is being fumigated, and the girls just needed somewhere for an hour. It's my home, I said. Ask first. She kissed my cheek. I will next time. She didn't. My boyfriend, Marcus Hale, watched me list the violations one by one. The borrowed coats, the curled up strangers, the long text chains from my parents calling me ungrateful. He has a quiet kind of strength, the kind you notice more in the pauses than the speeches. He wiped the counter with a towel like he was wringing out every word he wanted to say. I'm with you, he said finally. But please promise me you won't be alone when you confront her. Your family... They turned the volume up. There was also a name that started floating around our circles like a weather report. Tessa, Marcus's ex. She and Raina overlapped somewhere. A mutual friend, a yoga studio, a coworker's rooftop. I didn't care until I noticed how quickly my sister repeated the things Tessa supposedly said. Even Tessa thinks you're being extreme, Raina told me once. Faux concern draped over the jab. I filed it away. Noted. Weather turning. The crescendo came after a 3-day business trip. I unlocked my front door, rolled my suitcase over the threshold, and stopped cold. Empty beer bottles, no, a small, green city of them, spread across my coffee table. A bowl leaned in my sink like it had given up on being washed. There were soft snores, plural, from the living room. A man I'd never seen was sprawled on my rug. 2 more bodies stirred under throw blankets I'd bought during a summer sale. I pushed the door closed again, softly, like you would if there were wolves in your home and you were trying not to make any sudden movements. They blinked awake, embarrassed, but not enough. Raina said we could crash, the man said. She lives here, right? No, I said, voice steady. She does not. By the time they dragged themselves out with their backpacks and apologies, my hands were shaking in a way that made the key hard to grip. I called Raina. I didn't yell. I didn't have to. You're being so dramatic, she said when I was done. Nothing's missing, right? Calm down. They're good people. Then let them be good people somewhere else, I said, and hung up. The locksmith came that afternoon. New deadbolt, new latch, new code. While he worked, Marcus measured the hallway for a console table we used to talk about but never bought, as if building me a surface might also build me a boundary. When the locksmith left, Marcus squeezed my shoulder. Let me help set up a camera, he said, for your peace of mind. We installed a small one in the living room, pointed at the door. It blinked its tiny red eyelid as if it already knew the future. I didn't tell Raina. I didn't tell anyone. 2 days later, my phone lit up at 2:11 p.m. with an incoming call I knew would calcify into a memory. What the hell? Raina snapped. My key doesn't work. I changed the locks. You what? I'm not comfortable with you entering my home when I'm not there, I said, voice like glass. If you need something, text me. We'll arrange a time. Silence. Then the signal flare. What if there's an emergency? What kind of emergency requires you to enter my apartment while I'm not home? She hung up. 10 minutes later, my mother called, tears already loaded. You will give your sister a key this instant, she said. This is not how we raised you. Mom, I said, I've already given a spare key to Sarah, my friend who lives 10 minutes away. If anything happens to me, she'll notify you and let you in. Raina doesn't need access. My father's number flashed next, his voice a gavel dressed as a human throat. Unlock this mess you've made, Beverly. Tonight. They told me they were coming over for dinner, not asked, told. To discuss. Marcus offered to stay. I asked him not to. They'll say I'm manipulating you, I said. He looked at me for a long moment, then pressed the remote into my hand as if it were a talisman. Text me a code word if you need me to show up, he said. I'll be downstairs in the car, 15 minutes away, tops. He kissed my forehead. Please promise me you won't be alone tonight. That sentence hung in the air like a frame around the evening. The knock came at 7. My parents walked in with that particular determination families get when they've rehearsed their lines in the car. Raina followed, immaculate, satisfied, like a lawyer who loves her case. The performance began. You're tearing this family apart, my mother said as she set store-bought salad on my counter as if lettuce could soften ultimatums. You know your sister works late. My father folded his hands. What if there's a fire? What if you're in danger and we need to enter? I have a plan, I said evenly. Sarah has the spare key and instructions. You trust a friend more than your own sister? Raina said, her mouth curving, a smile that felt like a knife learning ballet. Sarah respects my boundaries, I said. You don't. The air changed. My mother's voice took on a tremor I'd learned to obey when I was 10 and too young to know the word conditioning. Family shares, she said. Sharing requires consent, I replied, quieter now, because anger in me often gets tired and takes the form of calm. You've been taking, Raina scoffed. We used to share everything growing up. I remember, I said. It's why I know the difference. My father switched tactics. The reasonable man routine. Return your sister's key, Beverly. It's a simple fix. The fix, I said, is a boundary. They stayed for an hour that felt like 3 years. Every example I gave, a party I hadn't approved, clothes returned stained, strangers on my couch, was dismissed as pettiness, selfishness, a failure of charitable spirit. When they left, not a single hug. My mother turned at the door. We'll discuss this again when you've come to your senses, she said. When the lock clicked, I slid down the inside of my door and let my head rest against the wood. Marcus texted, Code word? I wrote back, I'm okay, just tired. Guilt is a fog machine. It filled the room. To cut through it, I made a list. Every boundary crossed over the last year. It filled 3 pages. I slept with the list on my nightstand like a relic. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a security alert. Motion detected near the front door. I glanced at the preview. A concierge delivering a package. No threat. Still, my heart lunged. I exhaled and laughed at myself, the kind of laugh that wobbles. The little red eyelid blinked at me from the corner of the living room. You and me, I told it, ridiculous and sincere. We're not crazy. In the hallway, footsteps. Somewhere an elevator chimed. In my phone, Marcus's message floated up from last night like a buoy. 15 minutes away, tops. I didn't know it then, but that promise was about to be tested. And the camera, my tiny, blinking witness, was going to see something even I couldn't have imagined. 3 days passed before the tension took physical shape again, in the form of my mother's text message. We're coming over tonight, 7 p.m. Don't make this harder than it has to be. There was no question mark, no space for refusal, just that steady tone of authority I'd been trained since childhood to obey. Marcus was pacing near my window when I told him. They're not coming to talk, he said flatly. They're coming to corner you. I know, I replied, tightening the scarf around my neck, though it wasn't cold. Then I'll be outside, car running. You call, I'm here. When the knock came, it was a symphony of control, 3 sharp raps that sounded like decisions already made. My parents entered with Raina floating behind them, smug and freshly polished, a smile tucked behind her glossed lips. The discussion turned into a cross-examination. "You've embarrassed your sister," my father started, changing locks like she's a stranger. Raina leaned on my kitchen island. "You make me sound like a criminal. I just needed my printer, that's all." "You tried to borrow my clothes last month without asking," I reminded her. "You call that borrowing?" "God, Beverly, you act like I stole your identity." My mother's voice quivered with wounded theatrics. "This is not what we raised you for. Sisters are supposed to trust each other." "Trust requires honesty," I said. "And honesty means respecting someone's no." Raina rolled her eyes. "You're obsessed with boundaries. It's like therapy brainwashing." The words stung because they were recycled from our last family fight. Phrases I'd said in therapy now used as weapons. Marcus's message buzzed on my phone. "Need me up there?" I typed, "Not yet." Dinner continued like a script I'd heard before. Accusations, guilt, tears, the subtle chorus of "You're the problem." But this time I didn't fold. I cleared my throat and said calmly, "This is my home. You are my family. Those two things are not the same." For a heartbeat, even my father blinked. Raina finally stood, grabbed her purse, and hissed, "Fine. Keep your stupid apartment. I don't even want to come here again." "Good," I said softly. "Then we understand each other." She stormed out. My parents followed, slamming the door with the weight of final judgment. When the silence returned, it wasn't peace. It was aftermath. I stared at the lock, wondering if this time it would finally keep her out. That night, Marcus came upstairs with takeout. "You did good," he murmured. "You held your line." I nodded, half believing him. "Then why do I feel like I just lost something I can't name?" "Because you did," he said. "You lost the illusion that they'd ever take your side." We ate quietly until he said, "Promise me something." "What?" "If anything happens, if she shows up again, call me first. Don't open that door alone." I promised. But promises mean little when the other person isn't playing by the same rules. The next few weeks were eerie. Raina went silent. My parents stopped calling except for the occasional guilt-laced voicemail. "You'll regret this when something happens, Beverly. Your sister's heart is broken. How could you?" I stopped listening. I threw myself into work, late nights at the hospital, long shifts that left me too tired to think. Then, one Tuesday evening, as I was charting patient notes under fluorescent light, my phone buzzed. Motion detected, living room camera. At first, I thought it was the cat. Then I remembered, I don't have a cat. I opened the app. There she was, Raina, my sister, standing outside my door, head tilted, studying the lock like it was a puzzle meant for her alone. Next to her was a man, tall, wearing a gray hoodie, showing her something metallic. They were laughing. He demonstrated the tool, slipped it into the keyhole. My stomach dropped. They were trying to pick my lock. My breath went shallow, the fluorescent hum in the office suddenly unbearable. For nearly 6 minutes they worked at it, chatting, joking, until the man shook his head and they walked away, casual as if they'd merely been checking the mail. I sat frozen, my hand gripping the phone until it dimmed. By the time I could move again, I was shaking too hard to type. I forwarded the footage to myself, to Marcus, to a backup drive, like a reflex, like proof of a nightmare that needed to exist outside of my own disbelief. Then I called the police. The officer who answered spoke gently, but his words landed like stones. "That's attempted unlawful entry, ma'am. We'll send someone to take a report." He said, "Ma'am, the way people say you did the right thing, and I'm sorry it came to this at the same time." When I hung up, I sat staring at the paused frame of Raina's face on my screen. My sister's smirk frozen mid-laugh. The next morning, my phone exploded with calls from my parents. Then Marcus, then Raina. When I finally picked up Marcus's call, his voice was sharp with fury. "She tried to break in, didn't she?" "Yes." "I'm coming over." "No. Bev, don't you dare say no. I'm not letting you face them alone this time." By noon, the cease and desist letter was already being drafted by a lawyer Marcus knew from college. I signed it without hesitation. That evening, Raina called, furious, shrill, unrepentant. "You've lost your mind," she screamed. "Mike's a locksmith. We were joking around. You're going to ruin my life over nothing." "You were trying to open my door for 6 minutes," I said quietly. "That's not curiosity." "Oh my God, Beverly, you're so dramatic. You always need to be the victim." "You're right," I said. "I've been the victim long enough." When I hung up, the screen still glowed with her name, and I realized my hands weren't trembling anymore. What I didn't know was that the real storm hadn't even started. Because the next morning, my parents showed up at my workplace. They arrived mid-morning, just as I was finishing a patient report. The receptionist's strained voice came through the intercom. "Beverly, now your parents are here. They say it's urgent." My pen stopped moving. "Send them away," I said automatically, but my pulse betrayed me, sharp, insistent. When I stepped into the hallway, I saw them before they saw me. My mother's eyes already wet, my father's jaw set like a verdict waiting to fall. "How could you do this to your sister?" my mother burst out. "A cease and desist letter? Lawyers? Do you know how humiliated she is?" Colleagues glanced over. My stomach twisted. "Please," I whispered, gesturing toward the exit. "Not here." Outside on the cafe patio next door, the performance continued. "She's saying you accused her of breaking in," my father barked. "Over what? Some misunderstanding? You're destroying your family, Beverly." "She tried to pick my lock," I said evenly. "I have her on camera." "Stop exaggerating," he snapped. "She and that boy were joking. Family doesn't call the police on family." I leaned forward, exhausted. "Dad, I didn't call them on family. I called them on a crime." My mother's lips trembled. "You think you're protecting yourself, but you're tearing everything apart." She lost sleep all night, worrying what people will think. "She should have worried before she tried to open my door," I said. Her eyes hardened, the tears vanishing as if on command. "We raised you better than this." They stormed off, leaving their accusations swirling like debris. I felt eyes on me from behind the cafe glass, coworkers pretending not to stare. My throat burned. When I returned to the nurse's station, Marcus was already there, leaning against the counter, fury in his jawline. "They showed up here?" "Yes." "Bev." He took a slow breath. "You can't let them keep doing this. They're dragging you down to their chaos." He was right, but chaos has gravity. It pulls you even when you know the orbit will kill you. That night, the phone didn't stop ringing. Raina called 10 times. I ignored everyone until the 11th. "You're trying to ruin my life," she said, voice trembling. "I'm trying to make you stop." "You think the world revolves around your stupid apartment?" "No," I said. "Just my peace of mind." Click. I thought that was the end, until I saw what she posted online the next morning. A carefully edited rant. "Some people love drama more than family. Imagine calling cops on your own sister because she knocked on your door." She blurred my name, but everyone knew. Comments poured in. Friends, cousins, mutual acquaintances. So toxic. "Can't believe your sister did that." And in the middle of it, a familiar profile picture appeared. Tessa, Marcus's ex. "That's awful," she wrote beneath Raina's post. "I met Beverly once. She seemed intense." A chill spread through my stomach. When Marcus saw it, he went pale. "I'll handle this." "You don't need to," I said, but he was already typing. He commented once, sharply, and then messaged Tessa directly. Later, he told me she'd apologized, deleted the comment, but her words had already done their job. My sister had ammunition now, and she used it everywhere. Relatives started calling. Old family friends. One even emailed my supervisor to express concern about my emotional stability. The smear campaign worked. Gossip spread faster than the truth. By the end of the week, HR called me in. Not disciplinary, just awkward. "Your family caused a bit of a scene in the lobby," the manager said carefully. "Everything okay at home?" I laughed once, dry and hollow. Depends how you define home. That evening, Marcus took me to dinner. He reached across the table, took my hand. "You did nothing wrong," he said. "I know," I whispered. "But why does doing the right thing feel like standing alone in a storm?" "Because it is. But storms pass, Beverly. They always do." 2 weeks later, the lawyer called. Raina had officially received the letter. "Delivered and acknowledged," he said. "No further contact unless through counsel." For the first time in months, silence followed. I thought maybe she'd finally learned that we could all just live in separate orbits. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "You think you've won?" the voice hissed. "You haven't seen what I can do." It was Raina. Before I could reply, she hung up. That night, Marcus insisted I stay at his place. "Just for safety," he said. I agreed, though I couldn't sleep. The quiet of his apartment felt foreign, the absence of my own walls unsettling. Around 3 a.m., I crept to the balcony and stared out at the city lights. I thought about the camera still blinking red in my empty living room, watching, waiting. Somewhere in that moment, I realized the truth I hadn't wanted to face. This wasn't about keys or apartments anymore. This was about control. And Raina wasn't done fighting for it. 6 months later, the case closed, at least on paper. Raina pled guilty to attempted unlawful entry, accepted a plea deal, 1 year of probation, community service, and mandatory counseling. No jail time, no record if she completed it cleanly. It should have been the quiet closure I'd prayed for. Instead, it detonated another war. My mother called first. "Your sister lost her job. Are you happy now?" Her voice was ice-dressed in tears. "Mom," I said, "she was convicted of a crime. Her employer had a policy." "She made a mistake," she cried. "A single stupid mistake, and you turned it into a courtroom circus." I closed my eyes. "She tried to break into my home, remember?" There was a pause, then her tone sharpened. "She's your sister, Beverly. Family forgives." "Forgiveness requires remorse," I replied, "and she hasn't shown any." My mother's breath hitched. "Until you make this right, don't come to family gatherings. You're not welcome." "Then I guess I won't come." She hung up without saying goodbye. That was the day I realized the exile wasn't temporary. It was strategic. Punishment disguised as morality. At first, I tried to fill the space with work. Double shifts, new certifications, anything that drowned out the silence of being uninvited. Marcus became my anchor through all of it, showing up with food, with quiet, with patience. But even anchors strain under constant tide. "You're somewhere else lately," he said one night as we sat on his balcony. "Just tired," I murmured. "Of them or of this?" he asked softly. I looked at him, the city lights flickering over his face. "Both." He reached for my hand. "We can step away, you know. Move. Start over." "I can't just erase them." "Who said erase? I said protect. There's a difference." His words should have comforted me, but instead they lit something restless inside me, a grief for what family should have been. Then came the message, an email from Raina. "I'm sorry. Counseling has been hard, but eye-opening. I know I crossed lines. I know I hurt you. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just a chance to show I'm changing." I read it 5 times, waiting for the manipulation I'd come to expect. It wasn't there, or maybe she'd just learned to hide it better. Marcus skimmed it and shrugged. "Could be genuine, could be strategy." "I don't know which would hurt more," I admitted. I sent a short reply. "I appreciate your message. I hope therapy continues to help you. Take care." That should have been the end. But Raina shared our exchange with my parents. Proof, apparently, that she was trying. The next day, my father called. "She apologized. That's what you wanted, right? So now it's time to move on. Dinner this Sunday. Family reunion. We'll put this behind us." "It's not that simple," I said quietly. "You can't hold grudges forever." "It's not a grudge. It's a boundary." He sighed, the sound of a man rehearsing disappointment. "You're making yourself the victim, Beverly. Again." When I didn't answer, he muttered, "Fine. Don't come. But remember, when you're alone someday, it won't be us who left you. It'll be you who left the family." He hung up before I could remind him that I'd been alone long before I ever changed the locks. That night, Marcus wrapped his arms around me and whispered, "You don't owe them your peace." But his ex, Tessa, clearly hadn't gotten that memo. She'd reappeared through mutual friends, slipping subtle comments about how maybe Beverly exaggerates things. Marcus shut it down hard. "You're out of line," he told her. "Don't ever bring her up again." That's when I realized something. He wasn't just defending me. He was setting his boundary, too. Maybe that's what love really is, not saving someone from the storm, but standing beside them and refusing to let the wind decide who they are. Weeks passed. Raina finished her probation, her counseling. My parents remained cold. Aunt Susan, the one voice of reason, took me to lunch and said, "You know, your parents confuse loyalty with silence. You broke the rule by speaking out." "Then I'll keep breaking it," I said. Susan smiled. "Good. That's how change starts." And slowly I did change. I stopped apologizing for the space between us. I took on a leadership role at work. Marcus and I moved into a new apartment, one with a lock only we touched. Every so often, I'd glance at the camera from my old place, still active, still watching over an empty room. It became a symbol, a witness to the moment I stopped asking permission to feel safe. One evening, I sat by the window while Marcus cooked, the scent of garlic and music floating through the air. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I owed anyone an explanation. Until another envelope arrived, handwritten, postmarked from my sister's town. Inside was a check, and a note that read, "For what I took, for what I broke, for what I can't give back but want to make right." My hands trembled, not from anger, from something harder to name. Was this real or another performance? I didn't know yet, but I did know one thing. If forgiveness ever came, it would be on my terms. And that realization felt like peace. A full year has passed since the night the camera caught Raina trying to pick my lock. A year since the police report, the courtroom whispers, the family exile. And yet somehow peace found me. It didn't come all at once. It crept in quietly, with the hum of the kettle in my new kitchen, the sound of Marcus typing beside me, the quiet satisfaction of sleeping in a place that no one could enter without my say. But the letter, that check and the note, stayed folded in my drawer for weeks. I wasn't ready to respond. I wasn't ready to believe. Then Aunt Susan called. "Raina's different," she said. Counseling forced her to face herself. She wants to meet. Just coffee. No drama, no parents. I hesitated. My first instinct was no, but curiosity, or maybe closure, tugged at me. So I agreed. We met at a small cafe halfway between our towns. Neutral ground, neutral air. I got there first. The sound of the espresso machine drowned out my thoughts until she walked in. She looked smaller. Not physically, but like someone had finally punctured the balloon of her self-assurance. Her hair was pulled back, no lipstick, no smirk. "Hey," she said softly. "Hey," I replied. For a moment, neither of us spoke, just the clatter of cups around us. Then she reached into her purse and slid another envelope across the table. "Before you say anything," she said, "this isn't to buy forgiveness. It's just restitution. For the things I ruined. The laptop, your coat, that necklace from Dad." I opened it. Another check, smaller this time, but neat, thoughtful. I looked up. "You don't have to do this." "I do," she said, voice trembling. "My therapist calls it making amends. I call it learning how not to be the villain in my own story." I let out a long breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. "You hurt me, Raina, for years. And you acted like I was the crazy one for minding." She nodded quickly, tears glossing her eyes. "I know. I was jealous, Bev. You had independence. You earned things. Mom and Dad never let me figure out who I was without rescuing me, and I hated you for not needing the same rescue." Her honesty felt raw, the kind that didn't come rehearsed. I stirred my coffee. "I'm not ready to forgive you, not fully." "I'm not asking you to," she said. "Just maybe one day you won't flinch when I call." Something in me softened, just slightly. "Maybe one day," I said. We talked for nearly an hour. Not as sisters, not yet, but as two adults trying to learn a language they'd never been taught. Boundaries, respect, accountability. When we stood to leave, she hesitated. "You redecorated yet?" she asked with a small smile. "Yeah," I said. "New paint, new locks." Her eyes glistened. "Good. Keep them that way." Back home, Marcus was waiting on the couch, laptop open, coffee in hand. "Well?" he asked. "She's trying," I said. He smiled faintly. "And you?" "I'm not sure, but I don't hate her anymore." He pulled me close. "That's a start." A month later, I got an invitation. Cousin Dylan's engagement party. Handwritten, not from my parents, but from Aunt Susan. "You're welcome no matter what they say. You've earned your peace." I placed it on my kitchen counter and stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to go, to see if the air had cleared, to show them that standing my ground didn't mean I'd turned to stone. Another part of me wanted to stay home, cook dinner with Marcus, and enjoy the safety I'd fought so hard for. For the first time, the choice was mine. Entirely mine. That night, as I watered the plant on my windowsill, my reflection caught the faint red blink of the old camera I'd kept from the previous apartment. Just a relic now, unplugged, but still symbolic. I whispered to it like an old friend. We did it. Because we had. We survived the guilt, the shouting, the endless tug of war between obligation and self-respect. And maybe Raina was changing. Maybe she wasn't. But I didn't need proof anymore. Boundaries aren't walls. They're instructions for how to be treated. And I finally understood that keeping them wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. Last weekend, Marcus and I took a walk through the park. The air smelled like rain, and the world felt small in a peaceful way. "Do you ever miss them?" he asked. "Sometimes," I admitted, "but I miss who I wanted them to be more than who they actually were." He nodded, threading his fingers through mine. "Then maybe that's what healing looks like. Loving the version of your family that exists only in your heart, while living with the truth of who they are." I smiled at him. "I think that's exactly it." As we walked, the clouds parted. Just a narrow strip of sunlight, but enough to catch the gold edge of the water ahead. A year ago, I changed my locks to keep my sister out. Now I keep my doors open, but only to the people who knock first.